The Destroyer's March. Posted on August 25, 2017 by Ancient Sacred Text blog. A revealing text by N.P. Riskovski, published in Russia in 1905. The vision. What it was, I know not, perhaps a dream or an ecstatic vision, or mere hallucination, prolonged and complicated. The truth is that it has occurred to me in reality, without my loss of consciousness, and I feel an insurmountable power, which forces me to pass on, to tell everything I have seen and heard, to describe those terrible, monstrous figures, which appeared in front of my eyes, while I was sleeping, or I was not sleeping, or perhaps I was. While being attached to reality and aware of what surrounded me, standing right in front of that somber and frightening realm, which opened itself before me. While I was sitting at my writing desk, in the study, around 1 o'clock after midnight. I was suddenly stricken by the feeling that I was quickly sinking into a darkened abyss, in the middle of the earth, in hell, somewhere in the depth of 550 miles. I cannot tell how, but this number has been stuck in my memory ever since. There was pitch dark all around, and on the bottom of hell, fires were burning, rising up like elongated tongues, flying into scarlet blazes of blood color, and the darkness was black, darker than a rainy night without stars. I later understood that these were similar to some disfigured creatures, of terrible hideousness, such as that darkness, and the small round biting flames were their eyes. I could hear there, in darkness, harsh voices, like the clanking of copper plates, at the sound of which one's heart stops beating, falls to the floor and turns to ice, being stricken with nausea. I could hear the indecent banter and could read the thoughts of these creatures of darkness, and all their secrets were revealed before me. And there was someone next to me, supporting me, in order for me not to die, and through him I was stronger than darkness. May all these be interpreted by my readers as they shall find fit. But I will describe everything that happened, and I will communicate what is written here and named by me, the Destroyer's March. I shall do this thing with humbleness. April 17, 1905. N.P. Riskovski. The Destroyer's March. I am weakened and defeated, but I still master the great power of suggestion, and I will break chains and handcuffs. I will trespass the frontiers of universe, and I will rise up together with my legions. And I will force people to rebel, and I will start the battle, one last battle with this gentle Lamb, whose rays of glory, whose gentleness, humbleness, patience, purity, innocence and sanctity of his are burning me with unbearable flame, threatening me with the imminence of my fall into the deepest darkness. I know there is no escape from there, because that is the dwelling place of the eternal darkness of non-existence, where times assigned to me are sealed and finished, all means completely lost, there, in the dwelling place of darkness, in the new and endless, for me, eternity. And so was Lucifer thinking, handcuffed in hell until the judgment day, and was terrified by what awaited him. He remembered about the dwellings of light and eternal joy, the beauty of the heavenly servants of glory, along with their humbleness, modesty and devotion towards the Creator, celebrating in endless love for him and in the endless praise of celestial domains. He remembered of the time when the godly Lamb came to earth. He remembered how successful were his trickeries of betrayal and perfidy, delivering the Son of God to death by crucifixion, his false victory against him, and that terrible moment of ultimate defeat through the light-bearing resurrection of the Son of God. It is all over, the world believed in him, thus bringing to completion the salvation of humankind, which has been promised from the beginning of times. All future generations who are to be born, will be saved through this faith, until earth shall begin its forever unchanged existence, together with the most accomplished worlds, in eternal times, which I shall not have access to any more. And the chains, locked and knit by the darkness of treason, perfidy, anarchic pride, vanity and lie, which encircled Lucifer, seized and took hold of him even more vigorously from all sides, darkening his mind with even greater spite and hidden thirst for revenge, working him up even worse, in greater hopelessness through his helplessness, oppressing the consciousness of his reckless will. Shall I obey? perhaps? Shall I fall in the dust before the all-powerful light of all-creating power? Before this endless love and generosity of the one who calls everyone to eternal life, joy and delight of knowing true wisdom? Shall I obey? Shall I fall and prostrate myself, after I withstood, fighting for so many centuries? I tried so many war techniques and have perfected myself in my own culture? Thought Lucifer pridefully. And the raw, mad pain caused by the handcuffs of his tormenting helplessness, greatly and strongly seized him. He grew darker and more desperate, and the snake of his thought, twisting its rings, stretched itself in its entire length and stopped, then twisted back its rings, and entwined itself in the ball of destruction, disaster and death, endowing Lucifer with the strength of its flexibility, with the insinuating power of the serpent's wisdom. And Lucifer began to contemplate. We need to prepare ourselves for the attack on the right flank, the battle against faith. Our victory against salvation will depend on the result of this battle. Lucifer sighed like an erupting volcano, and roared like an underground thunder bang, and a terrible howl was heard, that caused the surface of the earth to shake. Lucifer called his legions and all his allies, who surrendered to darkness, and they all came together before their master, prostrating their monstrous countenances and hearkening to his instructions. And Lucifer shouted at them, "Hey, you, wanderers of forests, wilderness, shrubberies and marshes, weakened by the power of the cross, you, whose glory can now be found only in tales told by nannies to scare children by. Listen and execute, I bestow a new power on you and the strength of the black serpent. Listen. The cross and the faith in the crucified one have won over the entire world, have filled the entire universe. People are already close to the gates of the heavenly realm, which draws near with victorious zeal, to drive people towards eternal delight, towards contemplating that beauty, joy and plenitude of thought, which tears us apart through the torments of irremediable reality. People are already knowledgeable about what happiness and goodness of life are all about. They cannot be deceived through carnal pleasures anymore, through sweetness of sins and vices. New means are necessary, new procedures, the body must be left alone. We need to act against the central point and especially on the right flank. We must destroy faith, the most important fortress in the first rows. When this outpost will be conquered and destroyed, we will have won. For this purpose, we need to organize such an ambush that cannot be discovered by people, and in hiding we need to act fiercely and continuously, but in such a way that we make every single attack look like it's coming from the opposite side. Can you understand, perhaps, the actual military tactic? When the enemy cannot be seen, he cannot be discovered, therefore, he cannot be defeated. I bestow on you a new power of the black serpent, the power of suggestion. Suggest. This is the only way of action against humans' free will, to bend it towards the left, to our direction. To ensnare our enemy, the human, and to besiege him from all sides. People will accept mental suggestions as their own thoughts, as acquisitions and performances of their own intellect. They will irresistibly follow these suggestions, thus they will build schools, sciences and entire theories. It is your duty to use them to weave your trap, the trap of the black serpent, until human mind will be completely entangled in it. They will stop getting along with one another. Will not know where they are anymore and what truth is. They will not be capable to think about salvation and escape, losing their capacity to even want them. Then the light within them will be polarized into darkness, becoming our darkness. And they will start calling it light. Light will seem to them darkness and they will enroll themselves in our dark squadrons and legions. Left will become right to them, and the right will be taken for left. This left will be considered the true right, and their slavery and imprisonment will be taken for authentic freedom, which is despotism. After this, one more step, and we shall destroy everything on the face of this earth. Together with us, humans will begin to wish for devastation and ravaging destruction of everything that exists. Hooray! Hooray! Hell echoed the mad and frantic sounds of the dark legions. further growing into a demented burst of laughter, into a terrible howling of a beast, like a metallic clanking, nauseous, venomous, which would tear one's soul, coming down from hell. In eternal darkness, the black serpents of demonic intrigue started to hiss, and, twisting their rings, stretched themselves at length in the darkest obscurity, and stood still. Then they twisted back their rings and the eyes of the shrew were lighted. Venomous, disgusting, murderous, killing everything alive, and darkness grew greater, and was filled with groans and cries of torment, evil, helplessness and thirst for destruction. Desperate, eternal, endless thirst. And, suddenly, two dreadful eyes flashed and were lit, two dark pupils, black as night, piercing, daunting and frightening, lighting hell with the legions of monstrous creatures, and a deadly, frightening and sinister silence was cast. Plan of attack. Conquer the servants of the church and corrupt them. Lucifer gave a plan of attack to his legions. First and foremost, you shall win over the servants of the Eternal One's church. Show them how to gain power over those souls who long for salvation, over kings and rulers and feminine beauty, as well as the means of how to subjugate all of them. Transform the sacred annunciation of the resurrected one into a tool that their own hands can use, hidden to the ones who long for salvation, so that it does not reveal their criminal character before people. Make sure to pervert them carefully and step by step, and then your suggestions will be taken by them for their own thoughts. Then the lusts of sinful sensuality and hidden desire for soul possession, the craftiness of their plotting and reign over souls and treasures of the earth shall seduce their thoughts and hearts. They, as Inquisition surely has, throughout history, will begin to condemn, torture and kill those who are innocent and insubordinate to them. Those who reject their lies and hypocrisy. And through terror will they consolidate their authority. That's when your job will have been successfully finished. Faith will be weaker in people. People will think that if servants and teachers of the church are like this, then the faith which they preach cannot redeem, but curse, and that they lie. They preach and teach humbleness. They themselves being proud of their criminal and hypocrite piety. They preach purity and innocence. But they swim in the filth of debauchery, vices, seducing women and corrupting the innocent and pure. They preach love towards fellow man. But they use torture, burn people at the stake and invent new methods of torture. They preach abstinence and poverty. But they are unrestrained, arrogant, greedy, lovers of silver and eager to obtain others' properties. Temptation will be so great, that few will resist. Faith and religion will become madness, being undermined from roots, through the sins of priests. This duty is assigned to you, Legion of Falada and Moloch, perverting scientists through diabolical suggestions. And you, Legion of the Black Snake, master of the power of suggestion, here is my command. You shall follow step by step and continuously supervise those scientists who are endowed with talent and genius. These are the chosen ones and the most valuable of people. They observe nature and its miraculous structures and shapes, trying to understand the secret of life through the Creator's praise and knowledge of His inconceivable wisdom. Their purpose and aim are so clear and great, so that, if they are successful, all lives of humans will be spent praising the All-Powerful, and people will go back to eternal life and everlasting delight. To them, all happiness and joy of life shall be revealed and their faith will be like a diamond. And earth together with all its inhabitants shall become the kingdom of the resurrected one. Then, all our resources, methods of fighting and time allotted to us will be over. Hurry up, Legion of the Black Snake, hurry up, servants, to the realm of these selected ones, scientists and geniuses of sanctity of the cross. Suggest to them with cautiousness, deceive them secretly and in a manner that goes unnoticed, that there is nothing in the oversensitive and mysterious world. And in what concerns the progressive character of nature's development, in the entire diversity of its beauty and harmony of its shapes, suggest cunningly to them the idea of auto-creation. Suggest to them, in order to impress them even more, the Latin term of evolution. This word will become popular much faster and will be widely used, because people are passionate about science and strongly believe in advanced scientists. As they proceed with the experimental research of the structure of matter and its shapes, carefully suggest to them, as well as during their investigation of soul and spirit hidden in mystery, in the almighty power of the Creator, craftily suggest to them, that this soul and that life-creating, or whatever it's called, power, does not exist at all. It being only apparent, just like movement, a simple movement. Different only through speed, diversified by perception, or a reflection on the sensitive nervous ends, on the nervous cords of the organism. And that only matter exists, the visible and palpable substance, through the process of its auto-generating movement. This suggestion is so crafty, that people will easily move towards denying that human souls exists, and denying that God, the creator of the universe exists. They will deify matter. And his supreme representation, this godliness, they will mingle it and see it in themselves, namely in their own intellect, and they will become proud. And they will rise up against the belief in the human, the eternal one. The process of perverting clerics and scientists brings about disbelief and pride in human minds. Upon seeing the servants of his church, as you have managed to transform them, proud and lustful, people will become completely mad against God and will forge an alliance with us, the demons, and our subtle attacks, the suggestions that our legion shall make, will be mistaken by people as coming from the opposite direction, considered to be friendly salutes of intellect between their representatives of human genius. And they will believe nobody who tells them that we are the real enemies, and anybody that exposes us and warns others about our real existence, will be laughed at and deemed to be a lunatic. Demons confuse the human mind. When everything shall be ready, move forward with boldness. We need to act as tenaciously and urgently as possible, in order to completely deflect human mind from those celestial realms and from their hope of eternal life which calls them to the kingdom of heaven. Due to the fact that, aiming to enter the kingdom of heaven, people preserve their spiritual purity and constantly tune into that pestering voice of conscience which reminds them of God and his sanctity, we need to prevent them from accessing that eternal light of supreme truth. So, here's how we are going to proceed. Listen, you legion of the black snake, master of the power of suggestion, and execute. Offer as many distractions, as you can, to people, as varied as possible, captivating their attention through fervent successions. Every minute, every second, in a never-ending, unstoppable frenzy, newer and newer distractions, more and more attractive, more and more surprising, capturing their whole attention. First of all, procedures of transmitting frequencies, thoughts, desires, their whole being, enabling them to hear things at a distance. To communicate their own thoughts at a distance, something amazing, gigantic, stupefying. Let's bring people closer together, let's gather them in one place, we need to avoid isolation. Destroy individuality. Drive them away from their inner voice, piquing their curiosity towards bright innovations and the unprecedented growth of intellectual inventiveness. Capture their entire attention. All this frantic technology will be a tool for us to use. Developing means of transport using steam, railways and ships, roaring of trains, rapid movement, as fast as lightning, confusing the human brain. Noise, jingle, whistling, huge train stations, with their never-ending noise and tumult. A kaleidoscope of imagery and dangerous occurrences, audacious, almost insolent, leading to dizziness, leading to the damage of entire train wagons and people inside of it. Telegraphs, telephones, elevators, airplanes, phonographs and gramophones. Electric engines, electric trams, electric light. All to the use of human hands, a fruit of their own intellect, the reigning human, master of nature, a nature that he himself has subjected. There shall be no independent art anymore. Art will be found in stamps, photos, oleographs, in the mechanic and rapid reproduction of endless numbers of photos. Typewriters, printers, sewing machines, threshers, grinders, ovens, gaming tools, tools for singing and talking, cinemas. Through this technological frenzy, human intellect is exalted. No more manual work. Intellect triumphed. Human intellect reigns, human intellect is the master, human intellect becomes a human's pride. They shall praise intellect and exalt it. Humans will raise their heads with pride and know freedom. Why would they need a master, if they are masters themselves? Why would they need to bow down to someone, if they master everything themselves already? Why would they need to bow down to someone, if the forces of nature already bow down to them? Humans will get to know the wisdom of the prophecy told by us devils in the Garden of Eden. The rebellion of humans amplifies their guilt and fear of loneliness. And humans will raise their heads and provoke heaven to war, because it tortured them through the test of patience, and will rebel against respecting and obeying God's law. Against humbleness and purity. Against righteousness, scoffing at these qualities as if they were rather weaknesses, traits of hesitation and servitude, and will replace them with anarchic freedom, and enjoyment of sensual pleasures will be the adornment of this freedom. Life will become continuous movement, restless movement, a never-ending kaleidoscope of impressions. It will be overwhelming, pulling everything in, allowing them no time, not even for a moment to remember God and His sanctity. To remember that peaceful life, full of love, turned towards light, where its spring is, and in which the fulfillment of the promise is. Nothing sacred, nothing godly shall satisfy and comfort humans any more, and the voice of their conscience shall die off and they will run away from it. And their fear shall be agony to them. And they will seek to join the herd. Being afraid of loneliness, and trying to block the voice of their own conscience from waking up. The cult of intellect versus the cult of virtue. And so, instead of that childlike sanctity and spiritual purity, that they, believers in the Lord, call virtue, and spiritual development, as the Lamb taught them, we, demons, shall install our own culture. Our own progress. One of triumphant and prideful intellect. Why respect this odious system, this conformity with the law? Why have this moral strength which unifies powers of soul and blocks human inclination towards the unquenchable desire of passion? Why hold on to this spiritual moral strength which blocks the insinuating calling to delight oneself in all the pleasures of a sensual life, altogether shameless and captivating? Be persistent and subtle in inspiring them equality of rights when it comes to ecstasy and superficial satisfaction of temporary lusts. Equality in rights over a careless life. A life of richness. Accessible to anyone. A passionate life, of enjoyment till the end, to the last one of pleasures. People give up natural life in favor of an artificial life, plunging deep down into sensuality and self-destruction. Listen up, you legions of the black snake and mammon. Listen up and execute. When the natural life of humans will become artificial, of mechanical manufacturing, then will manual work become obsolete and human hands will be emancipated. Then will the irresistible human desire to live convulsively, impetuously, through all senses, through all the chords of their bodies, through all sensations that a minute, even a second can bring, to sip from the cup of passionate delight, filled with the joys and pleasures of our demonic culture, in its wholeness, will grow. Like a sweeping wave, a predatory, fiercely passionate wave. Their uncontrolled desire to drink from the cup of life, to its every last drop, will start to grow and intensify up to the ecstasy of death, reaching the agony of delights. Let all people taste, test, and take pleasure in them. Because there will be no faith anymore, there will be no hope anymore. There will be no love, there shall only be sensual pleasures. People themselves shall end up laughing at these fruits of naive human fantasy. Faith, hope and love, just as we are laughing now. Free children of hell, he laughed. So, laugh at them. Laugh at the lunatics, you lunatics. Laugh, you legion of the black snake. Laugh, you old Moloch. Observe and enjoy the madness of humans. The rich play an important role in reversing natural order. Work, faith and hope, used to save them, giving them comfort and pure enjoyment of life. Their lives used to flow peacefully, in temperance, while they would be judicially calculating harvest seasons, from reaping right until the next harvest. The rich ones have always been our servants, fulfilling our work, overindulging themselves and mocking the long-suffering and underprivileged ones, imprisoning them in chains and jails, making them work as slaves to the benefit of the rich ones themselves, to grow their abundance, for their adornments, their brocades and their fashion, for the pomposity and vain glow of lazy concubines, for debauchery and luxury, blown out of proportion. The rich never had any faith, nor hope, nor love or compassion. Their merit in all these is great before us. Therefore, when factories and plants will annihilate manual work, and masses of hunger-stricken poor will not be able to find work any more, our objective shall be accomplished. The working class shall call for a revolution and will break out in a terrible, universal wave. You, Legion of the Black Snake, and you, old Moloch, inspire freedom to them, the civilized freedom of their own will. At this point, things shall be easy for us. All we need to do is launch our marks and introduce socialism as a replacement of Christian ideals, faith, hope and love. Replacing that commemorating Church of the Lamb, which we managed to divide so skillfully, through the obeying hierarchy of its own clergy. To divide it endlessly in units that shall be in conflict with each other over priorities and sanctity. In the midst of hatred and quarrels between devout and ambitious pastors, we won. Shout, you Legion of the Black Snake, and incite the masses. Long live Marxism! Long live the working class! General, mandatory and urgent claim of collective happiness, of well-being, of the conveniences and pleasures of our own bright culture. Such a captivating culture, and especially free from all these thrilling melancholic inclinations towards the high and distant heaven. The embodiment of their ideals, there, is too far away. Individual improvement takes too long. The relativity of ideas is used to confuse people. Suggest short-lived happiness to people. Pleasure is here and only here. Suggest to each and every single one of them to be strong, energetic and firm for the sake of social happiness, of the well-being of all people. Mock the notion of sin. Mock life's purity and sanctity. Mock human conscience. Mock them and firmly suggest to them that, killing, spilling other people's blood, the blood of many, of an entire group of enemies, for the purpose of achieving social well-being, is a heroic matter and a good deed. To be thrown in prisons, bunkers and jails for the sake of social well-being, is an even better deed, considered to be martyrdom. Kidnapping, attacking, robbing or stealing for the sake of social purposes, that is an act of bravery. To be executed on the scaffold, or on the guillotine, or to be shot for the sake of social well-being and for the sake of our culture, freedom, equality and fraternity. Thus getting rid of these fantasies of faith, hope and love, imposed on people. That is truly a heroic act. Heroism, not like the heroism of Christian martyrs, fulfilled out of love for the greatness of eternal life, but the heroism of our own martyrs, modern martyrs, who shall die for a certain ideal, for the happiness of society, here, on earth. Happiness of completely enjoying all commodities and all those unstoppable and passionate tendencies to drink from the cup of life, up to its last drop, through goods equally distributed to each and every one. These brave martyrs of ours will exert an extraordinary influence on society, as they shall make a very fine distinction between the notion of heroic act and humble praise displayed by the martyrs of the Lamb. In order to steal their place and blur their remembrance from people's minds, thus minimizing the truth of their great martyrdom. This tactic, as well, will cost us lots of efforts and work, because you, legion of the black snake, will need to maintain, through increased suggestions, the execution system, which strengthens and supports your energy of opposing and destroying the Lamb's commandments among people. This system shall be crucial to us, as it will be used to deteriorate the relationship between people and authorities, bringing history close to the end which we seek. To our governing of the world, do you understand this tactic? You, legion of the black snake, and you, old Moloch, and you, ever playful, ever friendly Eros, the child of the black snake. Suggest to humans, therefore, the relativity of ideas. Obscure their minds. And Lucifer stretched out his limbs, yawning so loudly that all layers of inferno were shaking, and ground his teeth. Upon hearing the sound of his grinding teeth, the legions of those ugly demons faltered. The black snake of Luciferian thought twisted and seized him, enveloping him with its rings, and stretching out, and twisting its rings again, in the ball of a new dark thought of destruction and death. Humans possess a fortress, the strongest one, maternity. It must be destroyed. And Lucifer went on. Listen up and pay attention, you, legion of the black snake, and you, old Moloch, and you, ever-smiling Eros, child of the black snake, born under the heavenly tree of seduction, listen up. The most difficult of tasks is to be fulfilled by you, a task which our very success shall depend on, and all our plans will be futile if this task is not accomplished. Humans own a fortress, the most inaccessible. And that is maternity. Giving birth to next generations of humans and educating them. The maiden and the mother. This is that fortress of humanity impossible to conquer, which we must constantly deal with. Aim all your attacks against her, skillfully and cautiously. If you do not conquer, if you do not subdue this fortress, everything will be in vain, as you won't be able to stop a new generation of humans from growing up and becoming another army against us. With the woman's help, we will manage to get our hands on the entire humanity in its present and future, to entirely abduct it. And suddenly, horrified by this thought, Lucifer twisted his face as if his teeth were aching. The snake of black thought slipped between his wide open, stricken with fear mandibles and lost itself within him. The entire hell was shaken and trembled. A pure ray of light, coming down from the inaccessible heights, like lightning, struck the darkness, scattering it. This was the remembrance of mad Luciferian impotency and the Creator's eternal mercy. For a moment, there appeared in the sky, before Lucifer, the light-bearing face of the pure Virgin, the Lamb's mother, never tired and ever the protector and defender of maidenhood and motherhood of women. And the darkness of Inferno grew more intense again, and Lucifer's eyes glittered, and out of his mandibles the snake of black thought came out, and an insolent and mocking smirk contorted his face. We know these spooks all too well. He continued in an insolent, loud and disgusting voice, like the clattering of a brass plate between hammer and anvil. He put on airs with arrogance, raising up a hairy and deformed fist, with clenched fingers, displaying his sharp and white claws. Perverted man is a trustworthy ally to the devil. We are not alone. We have an ally, the crown of creation himself. We can for sure rely on him entirely. Man is on our side. The masculine gender, he shall help us straighten things out. Listen up, you legion of the black snake, and you Mammon, and you Moloch, and especially you, funny and playful Eros. Suggest to men, and especially to the young ones, excessive sensual lust. Suggest to them that all this chastity and purity of girls, shyness and all this innocence of maidenhood and modesty of youth, are nothing but prejudices without substance, which inhibit humans' natural needs and hinder life's pleasures. Incite men to practice free love, without marriage, that kind of love which doesn't hinder personality, alluring through the openness of diversity. Incite in men aversion towards marriage which oppresses personality, trapping them through the handcuffs of responsibilities. Show them and suggest to them the way of living in cohabitation and civil marriages. Medicine and Marxists will be of special aid to you here. Through their popular publications and instructions about arbitrary sterility using special devices during sexual acts. In this case the press, our faithful friend, will prove itself to be an excellent weapon of rapid distribution of this absolutely essential knowledge for proliferating the erotic cult. This on one side. And when men will completely overindulge, tasting the sweet experience of erotic cult from their youngest ages, wishing for free cohabitation instead of traditional marriage, seduced by polygamy, then stimulate in the most valuable of women, in the strongest of maidens, hostility towards men, skillfully hurt them in their womanly pride and dignity, inspire in their conscience the need to emancipate, the need for independent work and equality to men when it comes to civil rights, men who were guilty of their oppressed fate, men who have deprived her of a family home and who threatened her sublime natural gift of motherhood. The nervous system in women is differently built, being more sensitive to suggestions. Having been skillfully wounded in her dignity, woman is pushed towards emancipation, and thus removed from her divine purpose. Suggest to them with courage, but with precaution also, that they are equal to man, this rough material, who gives into crazy ideas more easily, ideas which he immediately transforms into scientific theories, along with a system of proofs. Find something to justify this idea, no matter how nonsensical it is. As we managed to fool the old scientist, getting him to see, in the idea of evolution when it comes to nature's universal forms, the lawfulness of gradual development, the idea of its ascending movement in the process of creating the images of this divine concept of perfect thought, the absence of God. And through the evolution and later usage of this crazy idea, to completely remove from science, the belief in the creator of the universe. This was truly our greatest form of mastery and complete triumph over human intellect, even though it's celebrated by man as a wonderful era of liberation. So what? Let them have fun, but, be alert. For woman is more cautious than man, more noble, more pure and divine in the light-bearing beauty of her soul, in her gracious appearance, and her influence is great. This is why, from the very start, we need to gradually suggest to her, with maximum cautiousness, false notions about femininity, maternity, chastity, grace and tender love. About this ideal love, as being invented by people, therefore relative and unreal. Then, more and more intensely, crescendo, suggest to her contempt towards those sentimental patterns, which uncover the female's weakness, tendencies to depend on and seek protection from her stronger half. Ridicule cleverly and skillfully, hurting her in her pride. Everything which represents a marvelous force and light in woman must be presented in her eyes, as being shameful infirmity and cowardice. Having lost her faith in God, woman ends up being a faithful slave to the devil. The main point is to continue the attack against that religious feeling, deeply rooted in the sensitive feminine soul, which will immediately enable us to pervert her progeny and destroy in them, faith and religion, these menacing obstacles to our demonic culture. For this purpose, suggest to women with persistence, desire to study superior sciences, where our evolutionary thinking system is already in place, the rational, crooked and false, path of experimental knowledge, which leads to denying God's existence, to the denial of soul immortality and denial of other enticements of faith. And in order to ultimately disguise this obvious madness, we will offer freedom of thought to people, and they shall soon invent positive thinking. Then will women be eager to share the right to science with men. They will attend universities. They will become teachers. They will dissect, along with their students, embalmed cadavers, searching them for a soul, the origin of life, and obviously, won't be able to find it. And as they permanently grow closer to the male side, in professional spheres of communication with men, in auditoriums and amphitheaters, in labs and clinics, in gatherings and conferences, in mixed schools and at work, in various governmental institutions, The intellect of women will naturally become in tune with the male's similar characteristics. And thus all that fascinating power, tenderness, feminine modesty and that divine attraction, which requires most sublime feelings of beauty and spiritual perfection, found in women, will disappear by themselves. And we will have in woman our faithful slave, with her enormous influence over the herd. Upon seeing her martyrdom in jails, exile and on the scaffold, in accordance to the criminal code of civil freedom, this shall be a remarkable insult against the Eternal One, unseen among our cultural acquisitions as of yet. Let him admire the crown of his creation now. Lucifer burst into laughter. And his monstrous figure, with the lips of his terrible mandibles wide open, displaying 2 rows of teeth, sharp as steel, was horribly deformed. Alongside him there were laughing legions of the black snake together with all monsters of Inferno and their enslaved souls, the flattering allies, who were under the gruesome terror of surrounding madness and despair. Hell was shaken and the surface of the earth trembled at this wild and demented burst of laughter. Through practices of clairvoyance and magic, step by step, towards the coming of Antichrist in a world led by total anarchy. On command, listen up, ordered Lucifer, and when complete silence was re-established, he continued. There is yet an extremely important circumstance, which must not be overlooked. Therefore, go and precisely execute the following instructions. A certain part of the Lamb's Church, faithful to him, will be strong in keeping his commandments, attacking the faith of our own apostles of science, winning over human minds. In this mission, you, Legion of the Black Snake, won't be able to succeed so easily. Therefore we will need to enroll our prisoners from the other realm. Here's how we shall proceed. As soon as you observe some of the Lamb's followers trying to prove to our scientists that life beyond death with its superior realms does exist, inspire them to learn the secret proceedings of magical communication with us demons from mystics, which are faithful to our philosophy, and from disciples of devastated Eden's lands. Cautiously reveal to them some of the Masonic rituals practiced by Masonic lodges devoted to us, the sessions of clairvoyance and the methods of invoking spirits. Sessions which you will immediately attend and where you will always be present, occupying the first rows, under the cover of wandering spirits, which are our bondmen. But in this case we need to be extremely careful, not to allow those in wait to have in their mind and conscience, the name of the Holy One, or his Lamb. Therefore, hinder them and move them away from their alert religious state of mind, through hidden suggestions. But in the presence of scientists, of those dead in spirit and of the unfaithful ones, you shall not generate any kind of phenomena, lest the opposite reaction takes place. These congregations in front of round tables, and rituals, are already creating an atmosphere which is beneficial to us, and against the Lamb of Light and his Church, which annoys us through the purity and sanctity of its ceremonies that praise the Creator. So, be aware of the fact that mystical congregations, known as clairvoyant sessions, represent our field of activity, and you need to be present in the first rows. Retreat is allowed only in extreme situations, such as during the interventions of enlightened strategists, angels or saints, servants of the Lamb and protectors of the souls of believers. The main point is that you really try to establish amicable relationships with members of these sessions, showing up in groups, enticing them, piquing their interest and curiosity. Touch the hands and bodies of the mediums and other participants, gradually mixing the subtle matter of your dark skin with their nervous fibers, and thus, what you won't be able to achieve through suggestion, you will eventually achieve through polarization, through the transfer of your voluntary tendencies. So, they will stop seeking happiness and spiritual serenity in their union with God, in prayers and faith. But they shall seek happiness through us, through receiving our writings and our miracles, welcoming them as superior revelations and finding in them the satisfaction of their craving to discover esoteric mysteries. When sessions of clairvoyance will replace the Lamb's Church, at that point, our purpose will have been reached. During these sessions, surprise and confuse the audience by performing various oddities, move chairs and other objects, make various knocking noises, play some instruments and ring, dictate messages, raise up different objects in the air, until you will gather from the mediums and other participants the energy and substance you need for your skin. That being done, take the material form of a visible body, showing yourselves as deceased people and hiding under their appearance. Through these temporary materialization episodes, in which spirits can't remain for a long time, because they risk killing the medium, we shall prepare the path, through our mixing with humans, to the conception and birth from a woman of our own offspring, called Antichrist by the apostles of the Lamb. He will compress inside him the entire human science, so skillfully turned upside down by us. The knowledge of all the miracles that can be performed through our powerful magic and the procedures of bringing the dead back to life. And, as by that time, our scientists will be spreading around the new teaching, based on the non-existence of God, and how he in fact is only a human's representation of himself. People will receive our son, Antichrist, like the Son of God, because he will have great power and will be performing miracles. He will be advising people, through speeches, statements and through the power of suggestion, to distribute lands, fortunes and treasures, so that nobody will go hungry anymore. It is then when human society shall stop calling itself the Church of Christ, but social union instead. It will be based on total anarchy, and it will be secretly and covertly under our control. Therefore, even the elect will end up going on our side. And, if a small herd of Christians still remains there, scattered on the face of the earth, that won't be a big deal for us. So, through our alliance with humans, we will go forth towards our last and decisive battle against the Lamb, Son of the Eternal One, and we will set our own empire on earth. In the worst case, if we are not victorious in this one last offense, we shall still have our allies by our side, whom we will keep for ourselves after our retreat in the greatest darkness, in order for us to keep ourselves occupied and maintain authority upon those who, without a doubt, due to human nature, will be tormented and will start to miserably lament their past that cannot be brought back. Do you hear, Legion of the Black Snake? Do you hear, my faithful servants and slaves? This is my last word. Did you understand it all? Lucifer roared with a wild and awful voice. And hell echoed the violent and loud voices, hooray, hooray. Lucifer, elongated in an unsightly figure, a hideous and deformed monster, beyond imagination, raised his hairy and brawny fist, grinning his teeth of steel in a menacing manner. In that very moment, with the speed of lightning, he fell down, along with his legions. In his realm, in the burning abyss, the bottom of hell. While the sun was rising on earth as ever before, flowers were sending their scented praises to the Creator in heaven, and angels around his throne were crying for the fate of rebellious humankind. In the last days. The end.